Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Dieppe City Council on February 13th. At the outset, I'd like to say that the City of Dieppe recognizes that the land on which it operates is part of the unceded traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship that the Mi'kmaq co-developed and signed with the British Crown in the 18th century. The treaties did not deal with the surrender of lands or resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between the parties. So welcome, everyone. And for the opening word, another opening word. Thank you. Dear colleagues, let's have the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There we go. Call to order. We have a confirmation of quorum. There's one councillor absent. We have received declarations of conflict of interest. Have we received any? No, none. Let us continue on with the adoption of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. All those on the question? There are no questions. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Against, nay. The resolution is carried as presented. This brings us to item 7 with regard to presentations, inquiries, and petitions. We always begin this discussion with a request or for information or a presentation by either members of the council or a presentation by Chantal, Inspector Chantal, who will give us an overview this evening. Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and councillors. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I just wanted to give you a couple of updates from the RCMP. Our members of the Community Policing Unit are putting emphasis on being present in the communities and being involved in community activities because we want to be approachable to people. Not everyone has the courage to call the police or to stop a car or flag a car down. So we attend public activities, even if it's only for 5 minutes. People have the opportunity to come and meet with us. So we encourage our employees to do that. And I can tell you that we're very active in doing it. Also, what we've continued to do is to do reach outs to more vulnerable groups in our community. We let them know that we are there as a resource amongst others to help them and to help them with anything they might need help with. I would also like to tell you that in the region that we do presentations to community groups, to community organizations as needed. So when we get calls and we are asked to speak to the group and we'd like either information about sextortion online or internet scams or other things. These are all the kinds of presentations that our officers are able to do on request. And this is we are here to serve. So if this is something that you would like, you can contact us. I have a specific email for these requests for community involvement. Also, it's been very cold in the last couple of weeks, and very cold indeed. And I want to tell you that every day we had patrols in our community looking for vulnerable persons. We did a lot of reach-ins. Sometimes it was awful because of the cold, and we were encouraging people to go to shelters to get warm, and we checked up on them. I also wanted to tell you that as citizens, do the right thing. If you see someone who you think is is outside and should not be outside because it's too cold, and you want us to check on them, please call us. And if you see any other risks that these people might be subject to, call us. This is a well-being check, and we want to check on them and make sure they're okay. If they need any help, we'll offer it to them. And, sometimes it was -40. Nobody should be outside. We should find a spot for them. Another quick thing that I wanted to raise to your attention, Your Worship, is as you know that the General Service Inquest, the GIS, they always manage the big files in our region, and I want to tell you about the people who work in that unit who are constantly working hard. They are very busy, and in the last month, in January, they had several search warrants as a result of inquiries. In the last 2 weeks of January, they had 9 inquiries that were involving children who had been abused or had been sexually assaulted. And this was in the space of 2 weeks in our region. So this work is very important. It's important work that they do. They do this every day because they want to uncover the abuse that our young victims are subject to in order to provide them with an opportunity to be heard, to be believed, and to denounce criminal behavior and to bring to justice those who are abusing. It's important to make sure that children or everyone has a voice, and this is what the Serious Crimes Unit is doing. So those are some highlights. Thank you, Inspector, for this information. Are there any questions or any comments by members of the council? Everyone's quiet or you're shy, one or the other. So if there's nothing else, thank you very much for this information. You are also invited to stay with us if you want, but we understand that you certainly have other things that's keeping you busy. This brings us now to item 7.2, a presentation on public washrooms and the drinking fountain study. Mr. Bork. Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. If you remember, in January of last year, we came to tell you about these issues in our public parks. We mentioned two things at the time. For 2022, we wanted to improve services in Dover Park. We had talked about a trailer and the problem there, if you didn't see it. But last year at Dover Park, we weren't able to get a trailer. We're always on a wait list with all the construction that's happening. It was difficult to get a trailer. But the other thing was that we wanted to undertake a study in order to see what the needs of our parks and trails might be. So we retain their services, Fathom Studio, and we have Adam Fine with us. He's online, and he's going to present us an outline of his report. Thank you. There you are. Good evening. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. Maybe I'll do it the next time.
Wayfinding and washrooms for municipalities. And it was a pleasure to work on this study with the city of Dieppe. So I'll just go through briefly. I've got about a 10-minute presentation. I'll go through a project background, a couple of case studies from other municipalities. I'll present on the specific cases of Dieppe's parks. We'll make a few recommendations and then get into the implementation and costing that we've provided in our report. For the project background, most important to say that washrooms are really a vital part of modern cities. People do expect now that when they set out into the world that they'll be able to take care of their needs as they're in your public areas, in your parks, traversing your trails, and generally moving around. the city, whether they're residents or people who are visiting from other places. Most important thing to say is that the longer people stay in a park, the more they require the services of washrooms. Someone who's just visiting a park for a couple of minutes while they're on the way may not need a washroom or a drinking fountain. But as people are spending more time in the park, whether to traverse a trail for a long distance, to play sports for an evening, or to hang out for quite a while with their family, washroom needs increase quite a bit. Small parks, of course, are the bigger issue because small parks tend to have far fewer. Um, there's not a lot of space, and the efficiency of providing a washroom in small parks is not all that well advised. Uh, Very few municipalities have public washroom strategies in North America, which was interesting to me when I first started this work and getting involved in making recommendations about public washrooms. So the nice thing about this is that Dieppe will become a leader among the few by adopting a strategy about public washrooms. We're guiding Dieppe in its current decision making, and we're providing guidance for future planning and design. So we're helping you make decisions about what to do today, but also to provide some guidance about the future. So the case studies that we've looked at what is happening for public washrooms in parks in Halifax, which is where I'm based, as well as in Toronto, Edmonton, Vancouver, which are three municipalities that have shown a bit of leadership in Canada. And then also Sydney and Kingston, Australia, which are among the many municipalities that have prepared washroom studies in Australia. Australia is really showing leadership around the world for public washroom provision and making strategic choices about where and how to provide those facilities. And also Denver, Colorado, which is one of the few municipalities in the United States that has such a strategy. So among the things that we've pulled out of those case studies, one is that considering design strategies, site location, and making use of opportunities is the most important are the most important things to deal with. It's not just about dealing with things ad hoc as things come up, but really it's better to prioritize your facility installation based on your park classes, thinking about how important a park is, how important it might be to residents and visitors to the municipality, and prioritizing those parks that provide more services where people might spend more time or there might be more people there. It's not just about providing washroom services, about having buildings with facilities within them. It's really also about ensuring that people know where to go and when those facilities are open. So something like wayfinding is really important to ensure that washrooms and drinking fountains are easy to find. You may be in a big park where you don't even know that there is a washroom, but if there's a sign there that says washroom 150 meters away that tells you to go down a trail, you might be able to make use of it. And washrooms are often the most useful when they're paired with other things. So we're suggesting that you produce flexible design guidelines and put up facilities that serve more needs than just the washroom. So you can have a washroom that also has drinking fountains that might provide something like this. This is in a Parks Canada facility that we designed. This is in Kejimkujik National Park in Nova Scotia. People can wash their dishes at this washroom facility. So if you're having a picnic or you're hanging around with your family, this does more than just provide washrooms, and it allows people to feel strongly about the washroom facilities, that it's something that's worth them keeping up and using, and serves many different social groups with different purposes. We also suggest, and it seems like most municipalities are doing this, to continue using temporary facilities. Chemical toilets and trailers are great for those small parks that are hard to serve. And they're also great for testing demand, so you can see how many people are actually using those chemical toilets to decide whether a full-fledged facility might make sense in a few years. One other thing that was very interesting, this is special to Edmonton and Vancouver, that peer attendance seemed like a great idea. This was a way of having the washroom staffed by people who might be from vulnerable communities, who have lived experience, who can negotiate or to help people out who may be using those washrooms for other purposes. And Edmonton and Vancouver both have had much better care for the facilities, having an attendant there that's able to watch over them and discuss with the people that are using them. Co-locating washrooms and drinking fountains is one of the best ways to save on infrastructure money. And your Place 704 is a great example of that in the Wingate facility. I'll just go through a couple of the Dieppe parks to give a little bit of context that is unique to your city. You've got 47 parks and 189 hectares of land. Obviously, that's quite a lot of parks to serve. And I think there's some 38 kilometers of trail in Dieppe right now, with maybe 15 kilometers more to come. That's obviously quite a bit. And you can't provide facilities to all of those parks or within all of those parks. So not all parks can receive that service. We suggest you focus on your community level parks, which is the upper level of your park classes, parks that are geared towards visitors, people who are coming from other neighborhoods, parks that serve really everybody across the whole municipality. Place 704, you've got the Seoul Urban Park, which is a really lovely space. It's an important event space where Dieppe is. You've already got those two gender neutral stalls, which are well done. They're owned by the city, but co-located in that Wingate building. The other washrooms, there are other washrooms there, but they are not municipally supplied. They're part of the Centre des Arts. And there are also washrooms within the retail businesses there. They are not public. And I think the owners and operators of those facilities would prefer that those washrooms were not used by members of the public who were there to attend events. The Centenaire Cousteau Park, it's really right next to the Uniplex. It's about a 150-meter walk. It's an events area called Musical. You've got chemical toilets there right now that are available to the tennis court users only. And I think they're only open by key when there are tennis events happening there. What could be done there would be wayfinding signage could direct people to the Uniplex as long as the hours of that facility and the distance were indicated, because it's really not a long walk. You can see the building just off in the distance. So anybody that needed a washroom there could go over there. For Lakeburn Park, it's a completely different situation. Residential areas surround this park. It's a very large park. There are quite a few amenities there, like baseball diamonds, batting cage, disc golf, and a dog park. When we did our online survey for this study, there were quite a few requests specifically for this park to have washroom facilities provided. And unfortunately, the site has a history of vandalism and theft, so whatever is placed there will have to be constructed appropriately. Dover Park is another important park within Dieppe. It's the site of a former school. Playgrounds and soccer there are the main uses, so lots of people are coming to use this park for decently long periods. And it's a high-use park for much of the year, from what we understood. And then last on the list of parks, you've got St. Anselm Rotary Park, very, very large park, many uses. There already are 3 existing washroom facilities in there. It's great and very well served. These facilities are well used and well maintained currently, from what we understand. Now, Riverfront Trail is also a very important facility. It's not a park, but it does provide park-like service. Right now, you have 3 existing Transaqua washrooms. It's a very well-used recreation trail with connections to neighborhoods and major urban nodes. Those Transaqua facilities are owned and maintained by the water authority there. I'll just get into briefly our key recommendations. I'm not going to go through every recommendation in the report, but just a couple of pull-out things. It's really important to note that standalone washrooms are expensive, so we're not suggesting that they get placed everywhere or willy-nilly. There's only a few that you might be able to install every year, given a limited budget. As I mentioned before, we suggest avoid creating standalone buildings, and wherever you can co-locate or install them within new facilities, that is a much more preferred option. For any washrooms that get built, we suggest that you keep written standards for washroom upkeep. And that is because poorly kept facilities reflect poorly on the municipality. It's very similar to something like signage or to other forms of public infrastructure. If people use it, they know that it's Dieppe's facility. If it's well maintained, they have good feelings about the municipality. But if it's not well maintained, if it's in poor condition, or it's dirty, or something's not working properly, people might develop an unpleasant association with the municipality, which isn't great. Mentioned before, paying an attendant with lived experience is a great idea, and Edmonton and Vancouver have had quite a bit of success with that so far. As for park selection, we are suggesting that you do not create new standalone washrooms when other facilities exist nearby that are public. We strongly suggest using wayfinding to direct users and reassure them about distances. So it's not just about pointing people to a washroom that's nearby, but letting them know how far it is and what the opening hours might be, and whether it's just seasonal or whether it's open all year round. We don't suggest installing washrooms in small parks because the cost is just not justified by the use and the size of the park. And we do suggest continuing to use chemical toilets to test your demand and provide a low-cost, flexible level of service. As for design, there are lots of recommendations in our report about how facilities should be designed. We are recommending that the sites are well sited, that they're built durably, that they are safe for people that use them. And I think this is really important, but often ignored by municipalities, that the facilities really should be appealing. Municipalities often focus on the durability, which obviously is very important, but we do want the washrooms to be appealing for people to use them and feel good about using them, and for them to feel safe within them. When it comes to siting washrooms, they should be within well-lit areas so people feel comfortable using them for all hours of the day. The facility should be near areas of high use, so they're where people actually are. People don't necessarily want to traverse a quiet area to get to the washroom. We want to make sure they're near those high use areas. And within the washrooms, we think it's important that they are supplied with 2 exits and entrances for safety, so that if someone feels threatened, within that facility, that they have an opportunity to exit by a different doorway. As for standards in design, CSA has a great standard which guides accessibility in a lot of these kinds of facilities. And there's also the Community Planning Act in New Brunswick, which provides some guidelines there. We are suggesting durable and vandal-resistant materials wherever possible. Passive solar and natural ventilation can save on costs and improve the overall feeling and efficiency of washroom facilities. And as mentioned before, we recommend making use of wayfinding signs, not just away from the washroom, but on the washroom building itself. There should always be something that says the hours and seasons of operation, any gender expectations about that facility, and certainly people should be aware that there is a washroom throughout the park where it is installed. Lastly, I'll just talk a little bit about implementation, what to implement and where, which parks are we suggesting. We developed a little bit of a typology for washrooms and developed some costing to go with it. So there are 3 sizes of facility that we're suggesting. The large washroom has a gross floor area of 59 square meters, cost per square meter, which has come from some recent studies that we've received from our colleagues. Of the cost per square meter is about $8,691, and for a total construction cost estimate of $512,000. This large washroom provides 3 stalls that are gender neutral with sinks, 2 water fountains within the facility, some accessible stalls, as well as some storage area for other purposes that may be required. And then this kind of washroom, as you can see at the back here, has some extra space that could be supplying a sink or a washing station for a park that might have a big picnic area, or some other similar facility. The medium washroom has 3 stalls as well as a single accessible stall. Water fountains on the outside with a common area, 2 exits and entrances, as well as a storage area on the side. This could also have a sink or washing station to provide another service there. And the total construction cost there is $451,000 or $452,000. By the way, for these costs, these would include the construction costs. They do not include servicing of these facilities, which would depend heavily on the exact location of the facilities, and they do not include design cost for these. The last facility is a small washroom, and we're suggesting a gross floor area of 17 square meters for about $148,000. This one is much simpler with two general purpose stalls, universal stalls, as well as a storage area, water fountains, and perhaps a sink as well on the exterior. The locations we suggest for all these include the ones that I mentioned earlier. The ones we are suggesting should receive locations initially are Lakeburn, 3 along the Riverfront Trail, and Dover Park as well. These are all the new facilities. And the reasons we haven't included it in the other parks is because we believe St. Anselm is already well served, as well as Place 604 and Cousteau and Centenaire is so close to the Uniplex that we feel like it's not a great candidate initially. So those are the locations we're suggesting at the moment. And here we've got a complete budget for that program of $1.4 million. We've also made a couple side suggestions here about some of the facilities. The Riverfront Trail, currently those Transaqua facilities are nice, but Transaqua doesn't want to maintain them over the long term, and we feel like they're a bit vulnerable in their current state. We think that it might be sensible to take over the existing Transaqua facilities, take over maintenance and operation, because the municipality, the Ville de Dieppe might be better equipped to actually provide the right kind of maintenance to keep those washrooms up. As for Dover Park, we suggest considering a monitoring or maintenance arrangement with the soccer club, given the amount of soccer that's taking place at that park site. Okay, I think this concludes my presentation for today. I look forward to any questions you might have.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Question de la part des membres
Thank
du
you.
conseil.
Are there any questions from councillors?
Okay, Madame Godbout.
Councillor Godbout. Thank you. May I ask a question in English and French? You have a preference?
En anglais, s'il vous plaît.
That's great. Listen, thank you for the
In English,
report.
please.
I think a lot of what you've presented aligns with what we hear from people living here in Dieppe as well. So I think a lot of really good comments and recommendations in there. One of the things I was wondering when you're looking at the proposed bathrooms, they seem to be kind of quite universally accessible too, like in terms of a lot of families using these kinds of facilities. So I'm assuming that in those reflections of those recommendations, you've got that into the consideration as well. I see gender neutrality, but we've got also something that would be convenient for families, right?
Yes, they are designed for full accessibility and family use, as well as gender neutrality wherever possible.
Okay, thanks.
Merci, Madame Le Boutier.
Councillor Le Boutier.
One is when you did the analysis over different countries and the other cities in Canada, did you look at the new kind of theme that a lot of cities are now using, the containers facility for toilet and that, and we actually have seen them the last time we were in Europe, that they have beautiful design and they're already you can purchase them already done. Has that been considered here? Would that be a fit for our community also? And some of them are also solar, so in terms of energy, green, there may be grants that we could require. I'm not sure. So has that been considered?
We didn't look at any of the prefab solutions. We haven't heard of other municipalities choosing them or recommending them, so it wasn't something we looked at for this particular study. So all the washrooms provided here are for custom builds, but that doesn't mean that those facilities would not be inappropriate as long as they fulfill all the requirements that we have suggested within these washrooms.
For the standalone, and I see even in the picture, and it was just I would like to notice is that I think it's very important that we do have, if we're going to have the porta potty, the standalone, that we have accessibility on every location that we do have. So I think that's one I would like to see in our city, because there's some like wheelchair could not have access to them, And I think that should be mandatory in Dieppe, everywhere that we have them. That would be a recommendation that I would like to see. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Merci, Madame Le Boutier. Quelqu'un d'autre?
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else?
Je ne vois pas d'autres.
I don't see
je ne vois
any
pas
other
d'autres lumières
questions. I don't see
s'allumer,
any
donc
other
I see
lights
no
on, so
lights requesting to speak on the issue. So that's a cheap one, but I'll do it anyway. Adam, it was a fine presentation on your part. I'm sure that's you've been told that a few times, but
All the
I can't
time.
help myself. So thank you for your fine presentation, and we'll see where staff wants to take us with this issue.
Okay, merci
Thank you
beaucoup.
very much.
It's been a
Merci.
pleasure. Cheers.
Cheers. Alors, ça nous amène à l'item numéro
which
8.
brings us to item number 8. Questions by members of the public. Our great numbers of public here this evening. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see anybody rushing to the microphone. So we will move on then to item number 9, the adoption of minutes, and more specifically, the minutes of the regular council meeting held on January 9th. Motion to adopt. It's been moved by Councillor Godet, seconded by Councillor Boudreau. Ready for the question? All those in favor favor of the adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held on January 9th will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. So the regular council meeting minutes are moved and carried. We're now on item number 10. Number 10, administration. And this is motions and nominations. This is 10.1.1 on policy A-14. Mr. Melanson. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Your Worship. You have a resolution in front of you. This had been brought to us several weeks ago already, and you had raised a number of questions, so we wanted to try and answer your questions. There were 2 points that had been brought up. The rate per kilometer, you were saying that it might be a little low after a reassessment of what was being done in other municipalities. The recommendation is now to have as 53 cents per kilometer rate. That's the first part. And on the second issue, having a monthly allowance for certain employees, if they have that option, we amended the section that allows the director to the CEO to allow this if deemed necessary. So those were the 2 questions that had been raised, and they've been so the kilometric allowance has been raised to 53 cents if from 51, and a monthly allowance is allowable as necessary. Thank you. Questions from councillors? Councillor Boudreau. Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to come back to the comment I made last time. I agree that we have an incentive. I agree with the incentive, and I think we should pay people who have to use their own car. But I'd like us to keep working on on using carpooling as much as possible, and that we use our electric vehicles as much as possible in our municipality. In order to reduce greenhouse gases, that's one of the objectives of the city, and we want to make sure we continue working in that direction. I can assure you, Councillor Boudreau, that the staff use vehicles from the city as much as possible, and it's whether it's the electric vehicle, that we have some vehicles that are there to meet their needs, and it depends on the number of people that are traveling together, of course, but that this allowance would be in the case that there are no city vehicles available. For example, during the certain festival, we have to hire students, it becomes difficult. But basically, yes, they have to use the city-owned vehicles first of all, and this is if the vehicles are not available. Thank you. Councillor Godbout,
J'ai pas
thank you.
entendu 53 cents
I
la
don't
question.
have
Est-ce
an
que
issue with the
c'est par
53
rapport
cents a kilometer, but I'm still trying to
le
understand
trajet ou la raison
the
d'être de la
reason
location?
why we have this
Quand c'est
monthly
à quelles circonstances
allowance
que c'est
for employees. In what
avantageux pour l'employé de travailler dans la
circumstances
ville?
is it better for the
Si on veut
employee and
circuler
when is
dans
it
certains
better for
emplois,
the
on peut
city?
réclamer un
For
taux comparable aussi de
example, in
53 cents
certain
la personne.
positions, you can
C'est une
claim a
question qui est assez
reimbursement.
challengeante pour l'employé qui reçoit.
If it's a reimbursement of
Donc, on a une
costs, then
possibilité
it's
de
not
pouvoir
taxable. In
accorder un
this
montant
case, we're
de
allowing
location
a
mensuel
certain amount, a monthly
raisonnable.
amount that is taxable.
Alors, ça reviendrait
So
à quel montant par
h-
kilomètre
how
que
much
c'est
would that
alloué?
be a
Pourquoi c'est
kilometer?
avantageux pour
And
certaines
why
personnes
would
de
it
l'accorder
be
plus?
beneficial
Est-ce que
for
vous pouvez
certain
répondre sur
employees to claim the
dans quelles
monthly allowance
circonstances on peut
instead? I'm
arrêter
just trying to understand in
parce que
what
le préconcept, c'est
circumstances
que
it would
la
be
location
better. I'm, I
ne
would
devrait pas
think that
être plus que 53 cents le
if
kilomètre.
the
Ça
rental is
devient
more than
évident de faire ça
53
et payer plus
cents
cher à la ville. Fait que
uh,
je trouvais pas de raisonnement, là. J'essayais
a
juste de comprendre
kilometer,
parce
it
qu'il
might
faut pas que j'ai manqué
be
un
more
monsieur, mais après il a pas,
expensive for
je suis
the
pas rendue, fait que là, je vais poser la question.
municipality. Anyhow, I'm just trying to get my head around it. And I asked the question last time, but I didn't get an answer. This wasn't included in the policy the last time, so all employees have to ask for reimbursement of the kilometers they drive in their own car. It was 40 cents a kilometer, but that was the approach that was used. It was non-taxable. That was the approach taken by the municipality. Now, after comments received from councillors here, is that we included this new part, but it's not something that we're going to try and do. We're not going to encourage employees to use the monthly allowance. We'll try and reimburse them for the kilometers they
J'ai bien
actually
compris
drive.
aussi, là, parce
Well,
qu'on
did
parle
I
d'équivalence, ça
understand
compte pour moi.
correctly that it
C'est
was at the request of
à quel
councillors
endroit c'était
at
là
the
qu'on
last
m'a une
meeting?
précision.
Well, at the last meeting,
OK,
we had asked
c'est
for
super. OK,
details.
super.
We didn't give you guidance in that sense. We just asked for details.
Moi, je suis
I'm
pas
sorry,
sûre
I'm
de ma
trying to
position.
understand. Well, in fact, this comes from the fact that we changed the reimbursement policies for officials, elected officials, and staff. So we had to review the kilometric allowance. And so while we were doing that, as I was looking at the current policy that has not yet been modified, the one in effect, there are a number of elements in that policy that shouldn't be there. There's an update as well that was necessary. So no, it wasn't a direction given by council specifically, but it was more a housekeeping, an updating, a refreshing of the rules and policies of council because the policies come from you. Now, furthermore, uh, in there's in terms of the coverage of this allowance, it's covered by a number of other documents, and I didn't want there to be any overlap and duplication. As a matter of fact, it wasn't amongst the documents that I had provided you in the appendix. So this presentation, you'll see that I added two appendices to it as explanation, as to help explain and to to its policy RH3 benefits, reimbursement and benefits, and that covers the CAO as well. And it's also applicable to council. So overall, that's where it comes from. And that's why there was that amendment made of A14. It needed to be reviewed, in my opinion, because there were certain elements of it that shouldn't have been in the policy. And it was a question of modernizing it and making it more uh, in line with current practices. So we're going from 40 to 53 cents a kilometer. It's not an exact science. That's what we're proposing because we had proposed 51 cents and we had some comments in the sense that that didn't seem to be high enough. So we went back and checked in other cities and checked comparables. Now, you have the table in as an annex, as an appendix. The table hasn't changed. It doesn't change very much. The kilometric rates isn't something that has changed very often. Moncton is different. They're at 53 cents a kilometer currently, but they look at it every quarter, I believe. Yeah, but 53 cents, it's, I have no problem with the kilometric allowance, the 53 cents. I have no problem with that. And of course, if somebody has to drive somewhere for the municipality, of course, we're going to reimburse them. I don't see the benefit of a monthly allowance. It's just another reimbursement, another administrative task, and I just don't see its usefulness. And that's what I'm just wondering: is it really necessary to have a monthly allocation, a monthly allowance? But the third point here is not something that we should have, in my opinion. And I just don't, I can't see when it would be advantageous for somebody to take the monthly allowance. I, I, I mean, we don't want to present an option that is not advantageous for anybody because people will see it and think, oh, maybe I should take it. So I just, that's just what I wanted to raise. Oh, well, I don't have an answer to that because that's finances and I didn't do a financial analysis. Perhaps we should check with finances and see if there is an advantage to that monthly allowance. I don't have a list of the people who use that option either. I don't think there's a great number of them, but I can get back to you on it and find out why. That's a good question. It's probably for financial reasons, I imagine. Perhaps we can get an answer then. But if you need that information, of course, we can table the resolution again. I mean, there's no, it's not rushed. It's not, there's no hurry. Well, we could just table the third part and move the two first points. No, I think we'd have to table the whole thing. Well, I would like to try and understand before I vote on something. I'd rather uh, understand it. I want it to be clear why we're even proposing it. I would prefer to fully understand it before I vote on it. And if somebody else has something to add, well, we'll go around and see if anybody else would like to make comments, and then we'll see. Councillor Thibodeau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Moi, pour faire suite à ce que Madame
Well,
Godbout disait,
to follow
je
up
me
on
demande
Councillor
pourquoi
Godbout's
on a
comments, I'm just
décidé
wondering
10% de l'allocation mensuelle.
what
Parce que
what was the monthly allowance
ça me
based
semble
on?
pas clair
It
dans
doesn't seem
ce qui
clear
est
to
écrit
me
là.
based on what's written here. From memory, Your Worship, there was an average calculated of all of the employees who used their car in the past, and it was a month. It was an average. It was not more scientific than that. There was a list of employees, so it reduced the work of the kilometric allowance and all of the work that involved. So it was more efficient to do it that way. Now, to make a long story short, it was just an average that had been calculated over a period of 1 year, a monthly average over the period of 1 year, and that's how we came up with that figure. So
C'est pas quelque chose qui devrait être avantageux.
I don't think that this is something that should be advantageous for
Puis, je suis
staff.
du même avis que Madame Godbout que
And I agree with Councillor
moi, c'est
Godbout.
pas nécessaire du tout.
I don't think it's necessary at all. Thank you, Councillor Le Boutier.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you,
Je vais juste
Worship.
revenir parce que c'est moi qui, je pense,
I'm the one
qu'on a parlé la dernière fois.
who had raised this
Je
issue
regarde
the last
présentement
time.
la
So
page 73
if
de
you
la
turn to
circulaire.
page 73 in Appendix B, the intention here was that there had been some positions that had been identified in the past. I mean, it's not, the city of Dieppe is a big organization and it needs to be nimble, it needs to be flexible. We have negotiations, we have to hire staff in order to permit greater efficiency. If it allows us and it enables us to better recruit and hire, I think we should allow that option. And we have people in HR who are there to manage these kind of things. Like other organization, it just allows greater flexibility. That's my opinion. And it's the and and I think the actual, if you look at the appendix, it just seems that the positions were removed, but the actual policy was this point was added to here, but the positions were removed. Okay, so
avec la résolution, puis s'il y a
we
des déchets, ben,
will
on fera
read the resolution, and
une autre résolution,
if it's
si ça vous convient.
not carried, then we will have propose another resolution.
Je vois dans le document que ça a
Oui.
quand même été acheminé à
I
travers les finances et
see
l'auto.
that this
Est-ce que
did
vous
go
pouvez
through
nous donner des détails
finance. Are there any details that the staff can give us on
quelque
this?
chose que tu peux me rassurer là-dessus? Je suis
Is there
pas sûre
something
d'entendre
you
ça.
can tell me to reassure me to answer my questions? Well, I've been treasurer for 8 years now, and I've never had to review or negotiate that option. No employees have been added to the list. Some have been removed from the list, but none have been added. So how many employees are using this option currently?
Je présume que c'est le DG. Oui. Question
It's
pratique. Hein? Oui. C'est dans le contrat de travail?
it's in the contract of a certain number of employees. Well, is it something that HR wants to have in their toolbox? That was the information that I was looking for, the reason why this policy was there. So if you tell me that you tell me that there isn't a large impact and that it's something that HR would like to have in their toolbox. It's not something we encourage. We prefer reimbursement of the kilometers driven, but it is an option that is there. And if we feel that it's necessary for exceptional reason, it's there. But we do prefer the a reimbursement of the kilometers. Well, that's what we said last time. If it's there, we have to know why it's there. But at least I'm a little more comfortable now. But I just thought that I didn't have enough
OK,
information
alors,
beforehand.
s'il y a quelqu'un qui en fait la
So
proposition,
would somebody
s'il
like
est
to
prêt pour
move the resolution? It's
mettre
been
aux voix,
moved by Councillor
appuyé par
Turgeon-Roy,
le
seconded by
boutier sur
Councillor
la
Le
question.
Boutier. Ready for the question?
Question additionnelle?
Uh, a question over here?
Ah,
No, we haven't
on va
read the
faire
resolution yet. Would somebody like to read it then? I'm sorry.
Madame
Councillor
Turgeon-Roy, s'il vous plaît.
Turgeon-Roy, that council repeal policy A-14 entitled car allowances and kilometerage employees and members of council, as well as policy A-24 entitled use of City of Dieppe vehicles by employees on standby responsible for the water distribution system, and adopt the new policy A-14 2023 entitled car allowance and kilometerage employees and members of council effective January 1st, 2023. And I so move.
Proposé par
Thank you. It's been
Councillor
moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy,
par le
seconded by
conseiller
Councillor Le Boutier.
sur la question.
On the question, any other
Donc,
questions?
ceux qui sont
If
en
not, all those in
faveur
favor will signify by saying aye.
ou de l'avis contraire par le
Opposed,
non,
nay.
la résolution est adoptée
It's
par la
carried
majorité du Conseil.
by a majority
Merci.
of council members. Thank you.
Prochain item,
Next
Monsieur
item,
Melançon.
Mr. Melançon. Here you have then a recommendation by staff that in Globe Corp undertake engineering services for the sanitary services in Dover Park, following the presentation made by the consultant a little earlier this evening. And for a total of $83,400 here, and this needs that the expenditure be defrayed from accounts for a total of $87,000. Who would like to read the resolution?
Godbout, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Que le Conseil
Councillor
authorize
Godbout,
le
thank you.
Corps
That
à
council
entreprendre les
authorize
travaux
and Globe Corp to
en
undertake
vue du projet
engineering services for the Dover Park Sanitary Services project at the cost of $83,400 plus HST, and further authorize this expenditure to be defrayed from account number 3-3-70-12-7617, General Capital Budget Recreation Plan, Dover Sanitary Services. That council authorize a budget transfer in the amount of $87,000 from account number 7-4-20-12-8920, General Capital Reserve Fund, to account number 3-3-70-12-7617, General Capital Budget, Recreational Plan, Dover Sanitary Services. And I so move. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Godbout, seconded by Councillor Boudreau on the question.
Sur la question, Monsieur Godet.
Councillor Godet.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Maire. Ce serait pour Monsieur Bourque, je pense.
Councillor for Mr. Bourque.
Les trans aqua, là, les toilettes qui sont là.
The
ceux-là,
Trans
c'est combien
Aqua
par année?
toilets, are they there all year
Alors, les
round?
trois,
Well, the
les trois
three,
toilettes trans aqua ne coûtent rien. Nous autres.
they don't cost us anything,
Ces
no.
trois-là sont le long du sentier.
They're along the trail.
Ils sont pas actifs tout de suite, pour différentes raisons.
They're
Mais ici, on parle du
here.
parc Dover.
Here we're talking about Dover Park.
La première recommandation du
And
rapport,
the
c'était
first recommendation of the report that was presented to you earlier was for permanent services at Dover Park, permanent sanitary services. Oh, I thought we were going to be purchasing three of this portable. No,
Merci.
no.
Autre question,
Thank you.
Madame?
Any further questions, Councillor Le
Oui,
Boutier?
Monsieur le Maire. Concernant
Yes.
justement là, les trois,
On these
celui à Dover, est-ce qu'on a
three
l'intention de faire
and,
application
and the sanitary services in Dover, are there any grants that we would be eligible for? Can we apply for any grants from the federal government? There might be something on the from the energy side. We don't have all of the details yet, but that's what we would like to do. We'd like to see with engineering services if we install solar panels or something. But usually when we if we do and if we have an energy component to a project like this, we usually do check, but I don't have those details yet.
Merci.
Thank you.
Quelqu'un d'autre?
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, just a comment. We're talking about being ready for construction by the spring of 2023. That's for engineering services, not the whole building. No, but it has to be the same level of service as we had last year with the porta potties. If and at the the season closes early at Dover Park in the fall. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, thank you.
Merci.
Thank
Pas d'autres
you. If there are no further questions,
questions. La proposition, alors ceux qui sont
you've
pour
heard the resolution. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
contraire pour un non.
Contrary, nay.
Alors, la résolution est adoptée.
And it's carried as presented.
Prochain item, le
Next, we have
10.2.2,
10.2.2 engineering services
au centre Arthur J. Leblanc.
for the Arthur J. Leblanc renovation project. Yeah, this is it was to replace part of the facilities, and at Saint-Anselme it was the arena was the it was built in 1971. It was well maintained, but it cannot be used with modern systems. So the staff feels that it would be important to be able to analyze the building and analyze all of the necessary improvements at Arthur Gilles Leblanc Arena. You know that there's the new pickleball courts are going to be built right next door, and they're going to need washrooms as well. So that's part of they're going to use these services here. So all of this put together, we thought it would be wise to ask for Englobe Corp to undertake a, a, a review of the renovations that would be necessary that haven't been done since 1971 and to come up with recommendations in order to extend its usable life and whether it's and to look at the new refrigeration system or to on the pickleball side or to change their location. Anyhow, we're recommending that Englobe Corp undertake these engineering services and for at a cost of $190,000. We'll have more information after this. So this is what we recommend, and we further authorize that this be defrayed from an account. Thank you. Thank you. To read the resolution, Councillor Bidreau. Thank you, Councillor. That Council authorize Englobe Corp to undertake engineering services for the Arthur Gilles Leblanc Arena renovation project at a cost of 190,000 plus HST, and further authorize this expenditure to be defrayed from account number 3-3-30-12-7607, General Capital Budget, uh, renovations, AGL Arena, and I so move. It's been moved then on the and seconded on the question. Councillor Godbout.
J'aimerais juste mieux comprendre
I
la
would like to
correspondance
better
financière en
understand
lien avec ce
the
budget de pickleball avec ce qui est prévu pour
financial
la
reasons for
résolution
taking a part of the pickleball budget
réfère
and put it
à
here. The resolution
une
here refers to
rénovation AGL, mais
the
le
renovation project
je
at
comprends le
AGL
dispositif
Arena, and now we're talking
pickleball.
about taking part of the
Qu'est-ce qui est
budget
inclus dans
from
le
the
projet de
pickleball.
pickleball, juste
And what does the
préciser
pickleball
sur le
project have to
dispositif.
do with
Merci.
this
Merci.
project?
Pour complémenter ce
Mr.
que
Bourg,
Louis
well,
vient
to
de
complement what the
mentionner,
CAO just said,
ça fait toute partie du projet
this is all part of
avec la
the
FCM au niveau
project
de
with
qu'est-ce qui
the
est envisagé
FCM to
dans
improve
le
energy
panneau solaire,
efficiency. We
les
had
deux
the
nouveaux
solar
équipements,
panels.
puis
We
la récupération
There
avec
was
les
energy
positions
recovery
d'aération.
project
Le
through
compresseur du côté a
the
été
compressor
l'amélioration
on the side. There was an
le lien avec
improvement of the
Pickleball,
entrance.
c'est que
Now,
l'opportunité
the
qu'on
link
aurait
with the
devant nous
pickleball
pour
is that
évaluer,
the
c'est de voir différentes
opportunity that
réfrigérations
we have is
à
to
partir
look at
du
all of the
système olympique.
refrigeration
Alors, on
system
avait déjà fait
using
une
the
analyse
Olympic
auparavant.
system. We had already
Et puis
done an
là,
analysis
on
in the
commence
past. Now
vraiment
we're
sur
going to push it a
l'équipement
little
côté
further
olympique parce qu'on
because we
parle de la
also have
console de la surface
equipment on the
synthétique de
Olympic zones.
72,
We have
mais
the
on parle aussi
original
qu'il y a
ice
certains
surface of
équipements
72,
côté
but there is
olympique
certain
qui ont 22 ans et
equipment
plus maintenant,
that are
ce qui arrive à peu
pieces of
près
equipment that are
4 500.
22 years
Alors, on
old.
regardait à tout ça.
So we have
Puis il y
to
a une
look at all of
opportunité
that. There is an
avec la salle de
opportunity
mouvement
on,
de Saint-Anselme. Puis la question avait été posée lorsque j'avais présenté
but
le
when
pickleball
when I had
par rapport au
talked about when we talked
condensateur
about
du
the
fameux chiller qui est à
pickleball, when
l'extérieur du côté.
there's a
Ça, c'est une
chiller on the
opportunité.
side on the pickleball
Mais
side that
l'opportunité
is
qu'on
due to
a,
be
si tout tombe
replaced.
en
Our
place, puis on va
opportunity
aller chercher
is
l'information en premier,
that
c'est
well,
qu'on
we
va
need to get the
rénover le
information
système de glace
first of
montagnaire,
all, but we
la
want to
glace
operate
olympique. Puis
both
vers
of
les
the
espaces
ice
plus en
surfaces
avant,
in the back
où est-ce que le
where the
condensateur en
Olympic
question là,
rink
dans le
is, and
garage
then free
de
up the
présentation qu'on va faire.
area
Ça donne des
in the front,
opportunités.
and that gives us
Puis le projet de
different
pickleball,
opportunities.
on avait
And
alloué un
the
certain
in
montant
for
pour
the
améliorer
pickleball
l'accès
project, we
au
had
centre
allowed a
d'entraînement
certain
et au
amount
service
to allow
aération
better
existant.
access to the
Fait
arena.
que tout ça,
So all of
donne
that
des
together
opportunités
just gives
d'analyser
us
les
the
espaces en même temps.
opportunity to
Et
analyze
c'est
all of these
possible
spaces,
puis le
and
pickleball est au courant,
pickleball
il est
might
possible
be
que cette année, on
and they're
construise
aware of this.
le terrain de
It's possible
pickleball,
that as
que
we're
l'accès ne
building
soit
the
pas fait
pickleball
cette année. Parce
uh,
que cette analyse ici
fields this
sera
year, that
terminée, sera faite en cours, mais
we don't do this
on va
part
tout
of
faire
it
en temps.
because
Mais on va leur
the
offrir des choses
analysis might
comparables
still
à
be
ce qu'on a comme
underway,
accès
but we
du
will
côté
off,
de Saint-Anselme. Ça nous crée des
but will
opportunités parce que cet salle
that that
d'équipement-là ne sera plus
that
utilisé
that
et
equipment room that is on
simplement
that
où est-ce que
side
will
on
no
donne accès
longer
aux
be
cours
used in the future. And that's
et
exactly where we want to give access to the pickleball courts.
Selon la résolution, les frais attribués à ce 190 000 pour l'instant
So
sont
for the
faits
resolution of $190,000 to be distributed in our budget
du projet de la rénovation de la
for the renovation of AGL and not for the pickleball project. Is that right? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Le Boutillier. Thank you, Your Worship. I also had some questions, particularly item F, and which brings us back to, that it would be good that we have an Excel spreadsheet that would show us what we've been voting on, the costs and the expenses, and where we're at, so we know exactly, once again, what the costs are. So we're talking about when we saw the analysis of AJL, it was a two-phase project. So when we said that the new things can't be used for concrete and it double the budget, had that not been analyzed previously when we got there? Is it something that's new that we want to do? This is what I'm trying to.
Je dirais pas que ça n'a pas
It,
été regardé
well, I
précédemment.
wouldn't say that it hadn't been looked at. I would say that
Et
when the
les
project was
bandes n'ont pas
presented,
amélioré nécessairement l'efficacité
the beds
énergétique.
aren't going to
Mais c'est un
increase
élément qui avait été
energy
identifié
efficiency. However,
et
the
c'est
need
quelque
had
chose
been
qui a
identified
été donné
and
à
that something had been qualified in the framework of the project that we have. What we're discovering now in year 3, because it's the third year for it, the intention was to re replace the boards, but the bands as they are now in Saint-Anselme are built specifically. They're not too good. These are attached to the ice service. There's a link between all these three elements, and that's why we want to undertake an analysis before we change those bands. I don't know if that answers your question. I think it is, when I was looking at this and our AJL projects were going to be doubling before we spend $190,000, maybe we should look at the exact cost of it for us, because the purpose, if memory serves, is to go forward with this project at AJL. And we said that in 10 years' time, we were going to get our money back. So if we're going to double the budget, is this going to be still logical for us to proceed? That's right. There were goals to attain. We have attained the objectives until now, and operating the two ice surfaces with one system allows us to attain other objectives. So to get further financing, this is all the evaluation that we have to do before we proceed with if we're going to make it bigger or not. We have to do that analysis first. Thank you. Thank you. I think this is an opportunity to do something, allow us to really lengthen the life of these services. Any further questions? All those in favor of the resolution will say aye. Against nay. The resolution is carried as presented. Item 10.2.3, purchase of a standard cab forward truck. I'm not sure what that is, standard cab forward truck. There's a picture in the memorandum that might help you a little. The three next resolutions are vehicle purchases that are part of the replacement program for the fleet. We had a tender call for 3, but these are the 3 that we have received and their proposals. You know the vehicle market and the availability, which is becoming rarer and rarer. So you have the first recommendation for McKay's Truck and Trailer Center for a standard cab forward truck is at 78,941 plus HST. This proposal was received, so it is recommended that we go forward with the purchase, and we recognize that it might be 12 months before we get the vehicle. This is the staff recommendation for this vehicle. Thank you. Could we have a resolution, please? Councillor Thibodeau. Your Worship, the Council award the contract for the purchase of a standard cab forward truck for the Operations Department to McKay's Truck and Trailer Center at the cost of $78,941 plus HST pursuant to proposal dated January 12, 2023, and authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 3-3-20-12-7903, General Capital Budget, General Equipment Purchase, Facilities. I so move, Your Worship. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Godet. On the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Against, nay. The resolution is adopted as read. 10.2.4. Once again, another truck. So the same thing. It was a contract, an award of the cost of $59,074.50 plus HST. We have a evaluation criteria. So for every proposal received, it's assessed on a certain number of criteria. So the recommendation is to go ahead with the Taylor Ford sales. Councillor Thibodeau, you still okay? Thank you. That Council award the contract for the purchase of one half-ton truck, 4x4, the Operations Department to Taylor Ford Sales Limited at the cost of $59,074.50 plus HST, pursuant to its proposal dated January 12, 2023, and authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 3-3-20-12-7903, General Capital Budget, General Equipment Purchase, Facilities. I so move, Your Worship. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Godet. On the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Against, nay. The resolution is carried as presented. While we're at it, let's move on to the third one. That Council award the contract for the purchase of one half-ton truck, 2x4, for the Operations Department to Lounsbury Automotive Limited at the cost of $52,845 plus HST pursuant to its proposal dated January 12, 2023, and authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from the following accounts. 65% of the cost from account number 3-3-20-12-7901, General Capital Budget, General Equipment Purchase, PW, Public Works. 20% of the cost from account number 4-3-90-12-7901, Water and Sewer Capital Budget, Equipment Purchase, Water. 15% of the cost from account number 4-3-95-12-7901, Water and Sewer Capital Budget, Equipment Purchase, Sewer. I so move, Your Worship. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Godet. On the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Resolution is adopted as read. This brings us to 10.3.1. Mr. Melançon. Here, Your Worship, last January 9th, we had received a request for a public hearing for conditional use of the land located on Miro Street. The proponent of the project indicated that they wanted to withdraw the project, and this would allow them to make some revisions to the project. So to put it into the process, Council has to undertake this reading, and it terminates the process because the developer, if they propose something else, we have to undertake the same steps as we did previously. So this is to withdraw this development project and put an end to the process. Thank you. Councillor Boudreau will read the resolution. Thank you, Worship. That Council accept the withdrawal of the application for approval of a conditional use for the land located at 452 Amiro Street and identified under PID 70602610 and repeal the resolution adopted on January 9, 2023 entitled Set Date Public Hearing Zoning Bylaw Z10 2021 Conditional Use PID 70602610 452 Amiro Street. I so move. Moved by Councillor Boudreau, seconded by Councillor Leboutier. On the question.
Aucune question. Ceux qui sont en faveur
No
de
questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye.
l'avis contraire par un non.
Against,
La
nay.
résolution est adoptée et
Carried.
présentée. Et nous en sommes à
We're
l'item
now at item 11, municipal bylaws. 11.1,
l'arrêté Z11
bylaw Z11 2023,
construction
building bylaw.
en première lecture par titre seulement.
First reading by title alone.
Monsieur Brideau.
Councillor Brideau. I have a problem with the bylaw. The system is telling me it's a couple of pages further. The document is a summary of the changes. That came earlier. Okay? By title alone. Bylaw Z11 2023. Building bylaw. I move a first reading. Thank you. By title alone. So, bylaw Z11 2023, moved by Councillor Brideau, pardon me, Mr. Brideau, and seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. On the question. No questions. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Against, nay. The resolution is carried in first reading by title alone. Let us move on to second reading, once again by title alone. Thank you, Your Worship. So bylaw Z11 2023, building bylaw. I so move the second reading by title alone. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brideau. We didn't have much from Councillor Brideau this year.
Appuyé par la conseillère Turgeon-Roy.
So it's been moved and seconded. On the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried in second reading by title only. We are now at 11.2, bylaw Z-23, 2023, Planning Advisory Committee for the City of Dieppe. And it'll be first reading, once again, by title only. Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. A bylaw Z23, 2023, a bylaw to establish a planning advisory committee for the city of Dieppe. And I so move first reading. Thank you. It's been moved in first reading by title only. All those in favor. Do we have somebody to second it? Sorry. Councillor Thibodeau. On the question. Question, Councillor Godbout. Could you explain the why of this bylaw? Why did we need to update the bylaws? Because of the new annexed territories? Mr. Girard. Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the question. Yes, you answered the question yourself, because we're reviewing the bylaw because under the new Planning Act and the new territory that has been annexed. Thank you. So if there are no further questions, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. And so Z, bylaw Z 23, 2020, 2023 on the Planning Advisory Committee is moved by by first reading, and we're going to read it a second time by title only. Thank you, Your Worship. By bylaw Z 23, 2023, a bylaw to establish a planning advisory committee for the city of Dieppe. And this is second reading by title only. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Godet, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau on the question. If there are no questions, oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Godbout, there is a question. Yes, a question for Mr. Girard. Did we check seeing, did we ask the current PAC if there was anything they wanted to change? I remember when I sat at, I mean, sometimes, there were just minor housekeeping details like the number of terms or the number of years a person can serve. Before we go to third reading, are there any amendments that or changes that would be warranted? Well, this is a bylaw in order to establish a planning advisory committee. There's also an administrative procedure that will have to be uh, presented, and it will be reviewed, the administrative procedures in terms of the mandates and so on, the terms and on the powers of the PAC, and and to refer to the proper articles in the new Planning Act. Thank you. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. And once again, so bylaw is adopted by title only in second reading, which brings us to 11.3, bylaw S-6 2023, a bylaw relating to dog control. And who would like to read? Once again, it's by title only. Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw S-6 2023, a bylaw relating to dog control. And I so move first reading by title only. Your Worship, thank you. It's been moved by title only by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau on the question. If there are none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. It bylaw S6 on dog control has been moved in first reading. We'll now move on to second reading, once again by title only. Thank you, Your Worship. Second reading, bylaw S-6 2023, a bylaw relating to dog control. And I so move the second reading by title only, Your Worship. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Brideau and seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. There's a question here? Yes, my question is just a question of clarification. If I understand correctly, the only change is to make it applicable to allow kennels in the new parts of town, because I think there are some there. The answer is no. We're doing this because we're adding kennels that can have more than 3 dogs. That's why we're bringing this forward. And yes, you're right, on the other hand, that the effect of this will make this bylaw apply to the whole new territory. So all 3 bylaws that we're voting on this evening apply to the new territory, to the whole territory of Dieppe. On the question, all those in favor will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. Notices of motion, none received, which brings us to inquiries and announcements by members of council. In the absence of Councillor Lantaigne, we won't give him a voice, but we'll start on that side with Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. I went to different meetings of different committees, and but I'd like to come back to one point that has come back several times with the request for conditional usage. Especially this evening, we saw one that was withdrawn. We've heard the complaint in the past, and I mentioned it at the PAC and here. The 100-meter zone is very small. People would like to have information on a much wider zone than people. I still hear a lot of complaints from people saying 100 meters is very, very short. So it's not just one person who's told me that, it's a number of people who have brought this up. And I know that you're considering it and you have reasons to maintain the 100 meters, but it keeps coming back. So I'm just doing my duty and bringing back up in case you want to review that at some point, because rather than maintaining the minimum of 100 meters, we could broaden that. Thank you, Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you. I also participated in a number of meetings over the last month, but there are things coming up. The Art Center is going to come present in March, I believe. So a lot of wonderful things are happening there. Along with Councillor Godbout, last weekend I had the opportunity to go to the St. Valentine's Day Gala at the Chute du Mont, and I'd like to congratulate I really congratulate the organizing committee that was able to raise $157,000 for the foundation. That's wonderful. And it's the first time in 2 years. So thank you. I'd like to thank them. I'd like to congratulate them and congratulate and thank all of those who work in the health field. It it was This message was really made loud and clear during the message, and I'd like to add my thanks as well, especially given the last few years that we've had. I'm not going to say the word, but it makes us realize how much these services are essential and how much we appreciate them. Thank you. Have a good week. Thank you. Councillor Thibodeau. I have nothing this evening, Your Worship. Thank you. Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing to add this evening. Thank you. Councillor Boudreau. Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to congratulate the U13 basketball team for their wonderful performance in Miramichi last weekend. They've improved greatly over the last few months, and happy St. Valentine's to everybody tomorrow. Have a great week. Thank you. Councillor Le Boutillier. Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know if we could get an update on different policies. We're going to present the new bylaw to council in April, and if council is happy with the content, we will be voting on it. In April, we're going to have a draft of a very advanced draft. Thank you. I'd also like to give thanks, first of all, to all the staff and volunteers of the city for the Dieppe Carnival. It was cold, but it we were able to. It, the sculptures were wonderful on the Sunday. The games there was a it was really great if we could have something that lasts longer, like this a treasure hunt, or and try and encourage people to go outside and have fun. I thought it was really great. Well done. Thank you. And I'd like to congratulate the team, the women's team, the Southeast Furry. That a great number of them come from Dieppe, including the coaches. I don't know if you're aware, but they were the first team and to participate in this tournament, and they're playing this evening as well here. Yep. So congratulations. Last weekend, our local Ringette team won all three of its games, so they represent as well. I think they've only lost one game all season, so it's looking good for the national championship, and we hope they get their gold medal. And the Canada Games are starting this weekend as well. We have a number of athletes going from the Dieppe area, so I'd like to wish all of the athletes, their parents, their coaches, and everybody lots of fun and lots of success. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le
That's it.
maire. Merci
Councillor
encore
Godet,
et
thank you.
de nouveau
I have
santé.
nothing to add this evening. Thank you very much.
Bien, merci.
Well, thank you.
Moi, de même, j'ai pas grand-chose
And same
à
thing, I don't have
ajouter.
very much to add myself.
C'est certain
Of
qu'avec les Jeux du
course,
Canada qui s'en
that
viennent,
with the
on souhaite
Canada
bénéficier
Games
aux jeunes
coming up, we know a
comme
number of
participants
our
qui
youth
participent aux Jeux du
will
Canada
be
dans différentes
participating in the Canada
disciplines.
Games in
Alors,
different sports,
on leur souhaite tous
and we
bonne
wish them
chance, bonne
all good luck
performance.
and have a good
L'important, c'est de
performance.
faire de
And
son
the
mieux,
important thing is to
puis
do your best.
adviendra
And
que pourra par après. Alors là-dessus, bonne fin de soirée à tous
and
et
so
à une
have a
prochaine
great
réunion.
evening and see you at the next meeting.